Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar presented by Alliance Life Sciences on the progress in harnessing big data at pharmaceutical companies with a focus on strategies, new applications, partnerships, and case studies. We have a really great presentation for you today. You're going to hear from Dilip Fadnis, who is the project leader and also the Director of Marketing Intelligence here at Alliance. You'll hear from Joy Gupta, who is the project director, and from Joel Auerbach. He's going to do the payer viewpoint, and he is the VP of Health Policy and Strategy here at Alliance. So just to do a quick rundown of the agenda. So we'll give you some insight into our project methodology. Then we'll go into payer expectations. We'll give you some great case studies that illustrate our findings. Then we'll go into the types of collaborations that you can expect in big data, some of the social media and patient community applications, and then we'll go into building a big data function in your company, and then some of the opportunities and upcoming developments, and then we'll give you a little overview of the project team. And after all that, we'll open it up for questions. And so what we're going to ask is that you actually log your questions in the chat function that you should see in your side panel on your screen right now. So if you have any questions, feel free to log them during the presentation, and we will address them all at the end. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Dilip.
Okay. Thank you, Art, and welcome to everyone to this webinar on big data. And as you all know, that a project is only as good as the methodology behind it. So if you have solid methodology and a comprehensive approach to the project, then you get very good results. And with that in mind, we had a very comprehensive methodology for this project. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the three main sources of information for us were lit search and review, and then interviews with many relevant professionals, and finally attendance of conferences and getting the information from there, and then putting that into the hopper and analyzing that with the information we derived from our interviews. So we did about 100 interviews in total, and these span from about 8 different stakeholders. So we had pharmaceutical health economic professionals, pharmaceutical marketing professionals in companies, R&D executives inside companies, payers, healthcare provider groups, big data professionals, suppliers, and some other categories of people. So all in all, we're able to get input from different stakeholders and integrate all that into producing our project report. So it is very helpful to have the different points of view. And just to be sure that we get all the good information and relevant information, all the interviews were conducted by senior consultants with Alliance Life Sciences. So they were not done by your telephone marketers that are commonly that are there to do these interviews sometimes, but ours were done by experienced people from a lot of life science industry background. So next we'll be presenting some findings from our report, and if you have any questions, just log them in and we'll get them at the end. So let's start with the first slide. So as you appreciate, the big data activity spans throughout many functions and different functional areas, different departments inside companies. And as you see on the left-hand side, there are 4 major functions that are users of big data. Your R&D department, health economic department, marketing and sales people, and of course marketing analytics. And as you also appreciate, the big data is applied in 3 different major life cycle parts inside a drug development activity. So you have the drug discovery and development pipeline planning area, the pre-launch preparation group, and the ongoing marketing sales program group, and also in post-marketing surveillance. So you actually have, we've talked to people inside pharmaceutical companies, and you actually have new product groups using big data to make better launch plans, more targeted launch plans, and direct application like that. So big data is very useful in the middle box, in the middle column. And from that, we can see that different types of data and different types of activity and analysis is done in the different life cycles. So in R&D area, in this function, we see it being used to identify and operationalize unmet needs, a very important and very big area. And also to kind of prioritize different molecules based on their prevalence inside the industry, the prevalence of the disease. So all this is used to kind of prioritize different molecules, and that's where it's used in this particular function. Also, the health economic people use it extensively for developing value propositions, and that's, as you know, is a very important use. It's given to payer groups, so it has to be accurate, it has to be detailed, it has to be defensible, and this is a big use of that. And the marketing and sales department and the marketing analytics and new product launch folks use it for the following 6 areas: to expand market access, defend against competitors, monitor adverse events, demonstrate real-world evidence, generate insights, and also to fish for new indications and later on develop them through the regulatory channels to make them viable. So in a nutshell, there's a lot of use of big data in different areas, different departments, different functions, and we will now show you how the payers use big data. The payers actually were the first group of people, first stakeholders to start to use big data in a big way. And we will kind of explain to you how payers want and what they want from big data and details like that. And to go over that, we have Dr. Joel Orbach, whom you've heard about. He's formerly a chief pharmacy officer with a payer organization, so he has the inside track on payer insights. And he will explain to us what, again, payers are looking for from big data. And I'll request Joel to take over. Joel?
Okay, thank you, Dilip. Certainly, big data is critical and has been recognized by payers, as Dilip alluded to, for a good number of years as being critical for both strategic and operations. If one thinks about all the different transformations that are taking place in the healthcare environment, when we're talking about financing reform, insurance reform, talking about care delivery reform, and the ACA, all of that really points to the need to have a very robust data so that basically one can move from what has been an old traditional enthusiasm of the day to more of an evidence-based approach. So if we think about this, payers are really looking at managing both clinical and financial risk and needs the data to do it. And as ACOs and other new delivery systems come into play, the only way that that is able to succeed is by having robust data, sharing that data in collaboration to really improve health. Plans and payers are looking at data to both identify and target key conditions and then to stratify patients for specific interventions, and we'll get into a little bit of detail coming up. It really helps big data to identify where, in fact, focus needs to be and resources, whether it's an adherence, whether it's disease-specific, whether or not it's helping to rank and also improve care across multiple different providers and to actually demonstrate how different provider groups and different plans are functioning across a number of different quality measures. And of course, identifying fraud and abuse is a critical piece here. If we go to the next slide, what we'll find is just an example looking at case management and diabetes. And one of the things that is, particularly with diabetes now being about 10% of the population, and depending on whether it's a Medicare population or if it's particular geography, it can certainly be much higher than that. One of the important things is looking at big data to taking all of the data that is available and creating a risk score to apply to a particular member. And based on the risk score, it will indicate who has a tendency or may, or more predictably, end up with complications, end up with cost, end up with debility and additional illness. And because of with the risk score, one can then target a variety of resources that best match the characteristics of that member and best align that particular patient to the best kind of care that's there, and also to particularly to share with the providers, the physicians, the hospital systems, that information so that people are working together to improve that care. So in essence, it may be with very low risk scores, pretty much kind of the incentivization to really stay healthy, to lose weight, to watch diet. As we begin to progress through diagnosis and higher risk scores, one begins to get involved very specific case managers, often diabetes case managers, and of course if we're into a medical home situation, really making sure that there's coordination with the medical home and all of the caregivers that are there. So this is all an increase in resource being driven by robust big data that continues to modify, continues to update that information on a population. If we go to the next slide. And again, part of patient-centered research is also incredibly important here with big data. If we think about, it's all about the outcome. It's all about documenting outcome. It's improving health, reducing cost, obviously making healthcare affordable, safe, and effective. And if we think about all the different component parts here, whether it's the patient, obviously patient-centered, with then the providers around, then the payers and the regulatory, all of this is critically important of having where big data begins to feed all of these components to help align incentives, align reimbursement, so that outcome is really the prime goal that everyone is working toward. Next slide. And I think at this point we're going to turn it over to Joy, I believe, who will begin to take us through the case studies.
Thanks, Joel. Good afternoon, everyone. What I'm going to do is illustrate some of the case studies that we included in the report. There were actually 28 case studies in all that are there. And these case studies actually covered the 4 areas that Dilip talked about: research and development, HEOR, marketing, and marketing analytics. So pretty diverse in terms of the range. And then also we have a couple of case studies that had to do with social media, which is one of the sections in the report. And given it's important, we thought we should include that. The purpose of these case studies is really to show the reader how they were set up and how they were executed, these different projects involving big data, so that when you go back to your companies, you could follow these as norms or models, and you could do similar exercises yourself. So that's really the underlying purpose of these case studies. In the section, this was actually a pretty well publicized case study. It actually compared 2 fixed dose combinations of asthma, and the purpose here was to demonstrate that one of those had a better outcome. And I'm not sure, I'm sure actually, some of you know that one of the issues, cost-related issues with asthma, is basically ER visits resulting out of asthma exacerbations. So one of the outcome metrics in this case study was basically ER visits. So, and they were actually able to demonstrate that one of the drugs could be actually put on a higher tier because of better outcomes. So that was this case study more in the HEOR field. If you go to the next slide, this again addressed a major behavioral issue in the industry, which is improving patient compliance when it comes to taking medications. And although in this case, the big data was not in terms of large in terms of volume, but in terms of analytics and diversity, it actually fitted the definition of big data. What really was done in this case is two groups of patients were taken for analysis. One was the control group, which received usual care, and there was the test group, which not only went through the usual care, but also were actually administered some face-to-face counseling sessions at the pharmacist level. And the drug here was basically statins, which we know, for example, being for an asymptomatic disease, there are issues around compliance with statins. So this actually demonstrated the differences between these two groups. And what we found in the literature is that the model itself had very high accuracy levels. And I think this was partly because of the way it was analyzed and, of course, the application of big data. Next, we go into improved physician targeting as one of the marketing case studies that have been included in the report. Here, this was a health communications agency that actually gave us this report, this case study. They actually went through market research. They went through syndicated data. They poured actually through physician rep interactions as reported by the reps. And they also looked at online activity. And this kind of diverse data was actually synthesized, integrated, and resulted in some marketing delivery tools that, according to this company, was incremental over and above the standard marketing programs that the company was employing. Then we go on to the next one, patient understanding and management. This was actually done by a healthcare provider, and it was done with patients who went into a hospital, stayed there for 3 to 5 days, and were released. And here the data combined the back-end survey data that's now a requirement, where hospitals are required to collect patient satisfaction, which gets into the the incentives and the penalties that are now imposed. And this was combined with online chats. And what happens here is that, according to the case study, the single biggest indicator of patient satisfaction in the hospital is pain management, which is not really a surprise because that's what patients remember the most about. What was surprising is that what they went by is not so much the pain that they went through, but how it was managed. And this was a new learning that came through and was possible because of the synthesis of the online tweeting and combine that with the survey data. Moving on, this is a chart that defines the reach of KOLs, and what it does is it tries to summarize or depict how much of a reach a company can have through a single KOL because of the network of that KOL, and the smaller circles that are green and I guess orange demonstrate the primary and the secondary reach of a KOL. And what the data that went into analyzing this and coming up with the schematic is historical TRX and NRX data, along with marketing spend activity, including that spent on KOLs, as well as online. So what basically it's a map of an influence network that finally kind of tells you what kind of impact can you have between one KOL and another. In other words, one KOL can actually have a greater impact than another based on the reach that they have. The next slide actually is not a case study. We've tried to summarize here Dilip actually referred to this earlier as well. Some of the R&D experts that we interviewed, and we asked them, where do you see the most applications of big data currently and in the future? And they point to 4 areas. They look at streamlining R&D population, which Dilip was referring to earlier. They look at pharmacovigilance, which is more like post-launch. Then some basic analysis like understanding disease population subgroups that can lead to things like new indications and label expansions. Risk profiling, which Joel was referring to. So these are some of the areas where big data can be used and is currently being used. And then the next slide actually gets into a very big collaboration between Mayo Clinic and Optum, and the sheer size of this initiative is amazing. It's 149 million longitudinal patient records. It's 37 million records coming from the electronic medical records, and it also has unstructured physician notes. So this was a major initiative that is currently happening, and from a methodology standpoint, it involves natural language processing and machine learning. And what they're trying to do is basically trying to identify patients with different combinations of comorbidities, so that can lead to different or elevated treatment and care levels. So this is a very, very major initiative that's currently underway. Moving on, this is a case study that's is very unique. It was actually initiated by Prize for Life, which is a not-for-profit foundation for Lou Gehrig's disease. And one of the challenges with this disease is that some patients with ALS progress very fast, and some don't progress very well. I mean, they progress very slowly. And one of the challenges in terms of deciding treatment is to predict what the natural progression of disease would be. So what Prize for Life did was basically throw this out as a challenge, what they called crowdsourcing big data ideas, and tried to come up with models that could do a better job in terms of predicting this. And apparently, there are some challenges in terms of analyzing this data. But we actually interviewed Melanie Leitner, who's the Chief Scientific Officer of Prize for Life, and she talked about the success and how they were able to kind of consolidate and strengthen, big data into this application. And the last case study that we have to show you is was given to us by a pharmaceutical company for a multiple sclerosis drug. And the purpose here is to show that how you can actually set up a media vehicle like a social media and use that as a secondary or a supportive role in your in your marketing program. And some of the challenges, some of the pitfalls, some of the issues that could come up because you're dealing with social media, the regulation, the control that you have to keep, and things like that. So it does get into things like how the data was collected and how it was kind of cleansed and controlled. So this was a kind of a different case study altogether, but dealing with social media, which all of you know is going to become more and more important in the future. Dilip will take you through the next few slides, starting with some of the challenges with big data.
Thank you, Joy. Okay, so we had a chance to hear some very good case studies from Joy, who was involved in compiling these reports. And the main use of the case studies is really to stimulate your thinking, to let you think through these and see how this is set up. So when it comes to setting these up in your organization, you'll be able to have a model against which to set up these studies. And of course, the new studies you set up will never be exactly identical to anything you've seen before here, but maybe a hybrid combination of 1, 2, 3 of these studies, and would make it into a better study for your company. Of course, there's a huge investment involved, so the more confidence you have in the methodology and the better methodology you have, the better the study will turn out to be. So having said that, I do want to move to another area, and that is dealing with the challenges that are inherent in working with big data. So there's a lot of excitement about big data, but in the excitement, what people sometimes lose track of are the challenges. So, we heard from a lot of people that we interviewed that handling the data itself is a major undertaking, and there are some challenges and complexities in that, because not all the data is uniform, it's intricate and complex, and it's inconsistent. So we just heard about AML, and AML is sometimes reported as AML or as Lou Gehrig's disease. So how does the computer recognize that these are the same things? These are some of the challenges. Secondly, this is a whole new area, and not all companies have the people and the resources to deploy against these projects. Data scientists apparently is a very sought after profession, and these people are hard to get, and that can be a constraint and a bottleneck in the implementation of your projects, and something to keep in mind. Also, the analytics had to be properly done. They had to be done with the context in mind, and we've heard of numerous examples from different people of how not having the correct context can really mess up the conclusions in the analytical process in a big data project, or for that matter, any project. And big data is huge, and the velocity is very high, so it limits the actionability, because the findings can become obsolete within 10 minutes. So that's something that you need to keep in mind also. And there are many other challenges like this that we have cataloged and worth knowing, because we don't want to know about them once the project is launched. We need to know about them before it's launched. So next I'll speak about a new area, and that deals with collaborations and partnerships. So this is a very key activity, and I personally feel that without the collaborations and partnerships, we wouldn't have had 1/5 of the progress that we've seen in big data projects. And this is for many reasons. We do have a situation where the different partners have different expertise and diverse skill sets. They have different strengths, different expertise, and access to different kinds of resources. So pulling them together for mutual benefit is what is required to make this happen. And I will show you several examples of how both the partners have benefited extensively because of the collaborations they went into. And the collaborations themselves are changing from the way they were organized even 1 year ago to the way they're being organized now. There is a big shift, and I'll tell you about that also. So the first one out of the gate was Humana, who signed a lot of different collaborations with pharma companies. And the ones with Boehringer Ingelheim was for COPD and other conditions. One for Astellas was on urology and some other conditions. One with Pfizer was to study the use of drugs in geriatrics, and many others like that with these companies. And what Humana delivered was the payer resources and the payer point of view, and pharma delivered the drug knowledge and knowledge about the disease population, and together they were able to extract very useful insights for processing these data more efficiently, for improving care because of the efficiencies, and for improving outcomes in the treatments because of access to more precise and better information. Then Humana went on and signed more alliances with Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, And I'm not going to go through all the details because the details are there. And again, for these companies, it provided a lot of good information. They were able to pinpoint new areas of drug investigations and patient management, disease management, treatment protocols, and details like that, because big data gave them the granularity, the nuances, and the details that they couldn't have dreamt of getting from other sources. So this is how these collaborations were very useful and provided both the partners with good value. And different kinds of collaborations are coming about. So Optum is now doing many collaborations. There's one with Mayo Clinic going on, and then IBM, WellPoint, and Memorial Sloan Kettering have another big one going on. And there are many others that I'll speak about also. But the point is that these collaborations provide the ultimate leverage, and one needs to be aware of what kind of collaborations, how are they set up, what are the resources transacted, what are the outcomes, what are the objectives, so that you can have your own collaborations and benefit from them. So what makes for successful collaborations? Understanding the needs, starting with priority therapeutic areas, understanding the challenges, and also to have an alignment on the strategic perspectives that you want from the agreement. And also be aware of where the trend is moving. So what we're watching is, in the beginning there were a lot of collaborations between payers and pharma, but now we're seeing a lot of new kinds of collaborations. So specifically, Merck has signed a couple of collaborations that are very different. They signed a collaboration with the EMR company, Allscripts, with another EMR company, Practice Fusion, and also with some patient communities, like patients like me and some cancer patient communities. So apparently there's a change here, and one needs to be aware of these and the details of these, so nifty collaborations can be set up for your company's benefit also. Okay, now we're going to talk about social media. And social media is a big contributor to big data sets. And it provides a lot of good information. It provides information on safety of the drugs, utilization, and this is all given by the patients themselves, either voluntarily or through solicitation. And what one needs is very good analytics to apply to these to get good insights from that. And you can get good insights like gaps in patient care and things like that. And increasingly we're finding that the mainstay social channels are becoming less relevant, and specialized networks, specialized communities are giving more deep and very relevant insights to move forward the company's objectives and programs. And of course, social media has its own problems, so you need to know how to leverage social media appropriately, and you do have to keep the business objectives in mind. So does it fulfill a gap against a business need or an audience reach? Does it create relationship and intimacy? Is it sustainable, or is it going to disappear? And how can it be supported? All the questions that are important, and also complementing with the traditional channels, because it has to be a multi-pronged attack, and have to have all good answers to all these questions to make the use more relevant and specific to your needs. Okay, we're jumping through different topics, and a lot of companies are, of course, very interested in creating a big data function. And several things need to be kept in mind while doing so. So of the companies we've talked to, different companies have different levels of maturity in this field, and the departments that they have are different sizes and different complexities. Some have large departments with many different sub-functions, and some don't. The main thing to remember is not to take the wait-and-see approach, but to decide the scale and structure that is the best for you and implement it. Implementation is the key because you're going to have a lot of issues that come up, as you saw before, the ones we mentioned as the issues, and they're going to come up and you're going to have to work through them. So it's important to get the move forward so that the desired objectives can be met. And much is said about the organizational silos that one faces when one starts the big data program inside a company, and it has to be handled properly. And the speed is also important. While the resources are constrained, it is important to maintain speed so you do remain competitive and ahead of the curve, so to say, and get the benefit that you're looking for. Okay, so coming back to the opportunities, there are many opportunities that can be that are there in using big data for your marketing, R&D, and health economic and other programs. And we have cataloged many of them. We have explained and described many of them. Some are shown over here, so I'm just going to highlight them so you have a good feel for them. So to facilitate favorable placement of drug on formularies, create programs to enhance compliance and persistency, collaborate with payers and providers by acquiring data for better understanding of drug effectiveness and other characteristics. And as you can see, these are all basically very important objectives. Obtain better direction to R&D programs for selection of candidates, indication prioritization, and things like that. For hyper-targeting of physician promotion based on sentiment analysis, which is the area of great growing interest. And to collaborate with other pharma companies to better understand quality of care in relevant disease states like oncology, MS. This is where a lot of the work is going on. And there are many other opportunities that you can take advantage of by using big data resources. And this field is moving very rapidly, as you know. And here are some upcoming developments we're speaking about. So everyone kind of agrees that with technology progress, big data will become more efficient and useful due to better technology. And as we just spoke, the collaborations will include EMR companies and patient networks. And we are increasingly finding out when we talk to people that big data is coming down from the hands of the experts to the operation managers. So more directors are working with this now, and it'll just spread from that to other levels of the companies. And smaller companies are making very good progress due to their nimble posture, and the big companies are making progress due to their resources and their power. We've seen this many times in specific examples. And there is in the industry entirely, there is a big trend towards getting patients more engaged, having patient-centered programs, and big data is definitely going to help in a big way in that objective. And application of information from social media will increase through techniques of sentiment analysis, as we've spoken about before. And this whole area is going to be exploding as we go forward. And there are many other prognostications that we have prepared, and a lot of opportunities here. Okay, so as we spoke before, the collaborations are very important. It's very important to have help. And in our work, we have profiled many companies that do specific work in big data. So the big data platforms, big data analytical experts, big data experts in warehousing, experts in other areas. We have information on a lot of these companies and their profiles. So you can conveniently look through these and select the companies you want to speak to, because you also have limited time. And you can speak to these companies and pick your partners for rapid success and rapid progress. So with that, I just want to speak about the team we had. We had a lot of good people on our team. I was the project leader, and Joy Gupta, whom you just heard, was the project director. He was responsible for putting together all the information in all the different areas. Joel Orbach, of course, had a very valuable input from the payer viewpoint point of view. And Margie Florio did most of the interviews with the payers and a couple of the categories. And Charles Chicone did the interviews with the pharma companies and other categories. And Dr. Mohan was the project guidance. And James Morgenstein, our Chief Technology Officer, provided the technological guidance. And all this was able to help us put together a very good project report on this topic. So with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation and turn it over to Art to conclude the webinar.
Okay, everybody. So as of right now, I'm not seeing any questions. So I'm just going to wrap this up really quickly and give you a chance to log anything that you might have while I'm doing that. So basically, we'd like to thank you for attending the webinar. We hope that you found it to be helpful. And we are more than happy to take any of your questions outside of the webinar if you have something, that you might not necessarily be comfortable asking to the group. There's an email address on the screen right now, which is Dillips, and you can also reach us through our website if you'd like, the brochure, any more information. If you have any questions, really, don't hesitate to reach out. And it doesn't look like anyone has any questions right now. So with that being said, I think we're going to wrap up. Once again, thank you for attending, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everybody.